Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our 9th regional webinar outlining the government's supports in light of COVID-19. My name is Derek Rowland, the Deputy Chief of Staff and Director of Communications to the Honourable Lisa MacLeod, Ontario's Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator for this afternoon session. Before we begin, I'm immediately going to turn it over to Minister Vic Fedeli for some introductory remarks. Minister Fedeli, over to you.
Thank you very much, Derek. Hi, everybody. It's great to join all of you today. I want to say right off the bat, thank you to Minister Lisa MacLeod, not only for organizing today's roundtable, Minister, but for all of your advocacy. I have to tell the group on the call what a strong and powerful voice Lisa has for you, Minister MacLeod has for you, not only around the cabinet table, but through the caucus and with the Premier. So I wanted to acknowledge that right off the bat. And to all of you, your hard work assisting businesses across Ontario's tourism sector, that's been deeply appreciated. We're working together towards this economic recovery. And I know that it's consultations like these where Minister MacLeod works closely to identify ways that the government can support all of you. And the creation of the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. This is the one that gives you a minimum of $10,000 and up to $20,000. This is a grant that you can use in any way that works best for you. We wanted to make sure that this is a seamless and a single application. You can go on there also for the $1,000 Main Street PPE grant, all of your property taxes, your energy bills for those eligible businesses. Go on ontario.ca COVID support. And you'll get to see all of the details. But again, I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's been a very long 11 months, and we hear from you through Minister MacLeod very, very, very concisely. Thank you all.
Thank you, Minister Fedeli, and we'll throw it over to Minister MacLeod to begin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vic, and thank you, Derek. I must say it's always great to be with my friend, Minister Fedeli. We spent the morning together virtually, of course, me and Nepean and him in North Bay, and I do appreciate him taking the time. We'll have close to 200 heritage, sport, tourism, and culture industry sector stakeholders on this call today, and I'll just walk you through some of the things that we're going to be doing. I know that this has been a tough time, and the pandemic seems to continually keep moving. I will say we will be having a province-wide telephone town hall Monday afternoon around 2 p.m. To address some sector-by-sector issues with respect to the lockdown and what a potential reopening will be. But today's webinar is very much focused on the supports that are available from our government. As Minister Fedeli pointed out, and he's very much responsible for the small business grant from $10,000 to $20,000. So we will walk through that with Ministry of Finance officials, as well as the energy bill and property tax relief that is available, and the $1,000 PPE Main Street grant. In addition, my officials from the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries will lead off this webinar today to talk about the current restrictions, but also two funds that will be available imminently for our sectors. So the first will be the additional $100 million that the Ontario Trillium Foundation will be receiving above and beyond its annual $103 million operating budget. This will support community capacity building in COVID-19. It will support tourism, heritage, culture, sport, and not-for-profits. So there will be an additional $30 million this year and an additional $75 million next year. And so those grant applications will be available shortly, as I said, and we'll be walking through that today. In addition, for those that are part of the cultural industries, we will be making available an additional $25 million to the Ontario Arts Council. $24 million of that will go toward our core cultural institutions across the entire province of Ontario, with $1 million reserved for our artists across the province to see how we can best assist them. So again, we have 5 programs we're going to walk you through today. You're welcome to use the Q&A on the chat box below, or you can email minister.macleod@ontario.ca. We'll endeavor to get you answers as quickly as we possibly can, but we wanted to make sure that we brought this demonstration to you. The final part of this demonstration will be from the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, where we'll actually walk you through the portal. And so it will be a demonstration that will best assist you on how to access these government programs and to get more money into your pocket. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Derek, and he'll introduce Kevin Finnerty and Patricia Vina from our ministry, who will get you started. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ministers, for your kind words. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone or let you know that we are recording today's session, and following today's presentation, it will be sent to you electronically, as well as links to all of the application forms where you can get more information, as well as submit directly. But with that, to begin today's presentation, I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Deputy Minister for Tourism, Culture and Heritage within our ministry, Kevin Finnerty, to walk through the current regulations that are in place as a result of the provincial lockdown, which are important to understand as it does contribute to the eligibility for the small business grant, which we'll be talking about shortly. Kevin, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Derek, and good afternoon, everyone. So as Derek said, Patricia and I will walk you through the current measures that are in place as they affect the heritage, sport, tourism, and culture sectors. And we will also provide you with a quick overview of the two programs the Minister mentioned earlier, the Community Building Fund, as well as the extra support through the Ontario Arts Council. So if we can proceed to the next slide, please. So just as a reminder, I'm going to go through all the businesses permitted to open, as well as sector-specific public health restrictions. But always, please refer to Ontario Regulation 8220 for all the details. What I'm going to show you is just really a high-level snapshot of the measures in place as they affect our sectors. So next slide, please. So as we start with meeting or event spaces, as a reminder to everyone, meeting and event spaces at the present time are only allowed to be open for limited purposes, such as the operation of childcare centers, recreational skill building programs, court services, government services, mental health and addiction support services with a maximum of 10 people, social services, and collective bargaining as long as no more than 10 people are in a rented space. A key point is that anyone who's using these spaces, contact information must be provided. For short-term rentals are only to be provided for individuals who require housing. Previously made reservations for short-term rental accommodation are only allowed if the individual is in need of housing. Ice fishing huts can only be rented for day use and for use by members of the same household with limited exceptions. A key point, the conditions to rent out an ice fishing hut do not apply if it is for the purpose of exercising an Aboriginal or treaty right. Restaurants, bars, and other food and drink establishments are closed with the exception of takeout, drive-through, and delivery, and that does include the sale of alcohol. Next slide, please. Hotels, motels, lodges, resorts, and other shared rental accommodations are allowed to be open. However, shared amenities like indoor pools, fitness centers, or other indoor recreational facilities must be closed. Seasonal campgrounds must be made available only for trailers and RVs used by individuals in need of housing, or if they need to be there by reason of a seasonal contract. And only campsites with electricity, water services, and facilities for sewage disposal may be provided for use. All recreational and other shared facilities must be closed, and other areas of the campground must be closed to the general public and only open for the purpose of preparing the seasonal campground for reopening. Media industry, so the music, sound recording, music production, music publishing, and music distribution businesses are allowed to operate. Film and television production is allowed as long as it's commercial film and television production with the following conditions: no studio audiences. Key point, the film and television production can take place in any business or place that is otherwise required to be closed. So for instance, if a restaurant, which is required to be closed under this regulation, is used as a film and television set, it is allowed to be open for that purpose. No more than 10 performers are allowed on a film or television set at any one time. The set must be configured in such a way as to enable physical distancing. People who provide hair and makeup services must wear appropriate PPE. And if there are singers or players of brass or wind instruments, they must be separated from other performers by plexiglass or some other form of barrier. Film and television post-production, visual effects, and computer animation studios are allowed to open. Book and periodical production, publishing and distribution businesses are allowed to open. Commercial and industrial photography services are allowed to open. And finally, interactive digital media businesses, which includes computer system software, application developers, publishers, and video game developers are allowed to open. Next slide, please. On the entertainment front, concert venues, theaters, and cinemas, and this includes drive-in and drive-through events, they're closed for all purposes. And that includes rehearsing or performing a recorded or broadcast concert, artistic event, or theatrical performance. Libraries may only open for contactless curbside pickup and return over delivery. Libraries must ensure that any circulating materials returned to the library are disinfected or quarantined for an appropriate period of time before they are recirculated. Libraries can also use their spaces for very limited number of reasons, including childcare, mental health and addiction support services, and provision of social services. If people are entering the library for any one of those reasons, contact information recording is required. Museums and cultural amenities are closed. Horse racing is closed, and really it's training only, no races, no members of the public. Nightclubs and strip clubs are only allowed to open if they operate as a food or drink establishment under the rules for restaurants. Next slide, please. Zoos and aquariums, amusement parks and water parks, tour and guide services are all closed. For zoos and aquariums, they're allowed to operate for the care of animals only. So that's my part of this section. I'll turn it over to Patricia to walk you through the restrictions in place for the sport and recreation sectors. Over to you, Patricia.
Thank you, Kevin. With respect to indoor and outdoor sport and recreational facilities, all facilities are currently closed. There are only a few exceptions, which are for professional leagues, and there are 7, such as the NHL, CFL, NBA, with plans approved by the Ontario Chief Medical Officer of Health. There is also an exemption for athletes who have been identified as training or competing for the next Olympics and Paralympics. In addition, a facility may open for the purpose of providing space for childcare, which has been defined by the Child Care and Early Years Act, mental health and addiction support services, where no more than 10 can permit to occupy the space, and the provision of social services. There are some conditions that apply, such as capacity limits and recording name and contact information. There are also some amenities that are permitted to open, subject to conditions. Those amenities include baseball diamonds, baseball courts, tennis courts, playgrounds. Downhill ski currently is closed. However, Minister McLeod has established a working group with officials and ski industry experts, and we will continue to work closely with ski hill operators to facilitate a safe return post-shutdown. Next slide, please. So these amenities listed in the regulation may only open if you maintain a physical distance of at least 2 meters from any other person. Team sports are not practiced or played. Other sports or games that are likely to result in individuals coming within 2 meters of each other are not practiced and played. And any locker rooms, change rooms, showers, and clubhouses also remain closed, with the exception of things like access to storage, a washroom, or to provide first aid. Next slide, please.
Okay, thanks, Patricia. So I will walk you through 2 of the programs that the minister mentioned in her introductory remarks. The first is the Community Building Fund. Budget 2020, which was tabled in November, announced that the province would be investing $100 million over 2 years to develop a community building fund that will support community tourism, cultural, and sport organizations which are experiencing significant financial pressures due to the pandemic. Funding support will be available to not-for-profit organizations and municipalities, and the program will be delivered by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and it will have 2 streams. The first stream is supports for local community, tourism, and culture not-for-profits, like community museums, local theaters, fairs, and cultural institutions, to help them sustain their operations in the short term, but as well create new attractions and experiences and events for the longer term. The second stream is funding for municipalities and not-for-profit sport and rec organizations to make investments in infrastructure, rehabilitation and renovation, in order to meet public health protocols as well as local community needs. The Ontario Children Foundation has been selected as the program delivery agent because it's very well positioned to deliver funding to municipalities, Indigenous communities, and the entire not-for-profit sector. They have very strong relationships with stakeholders across these sectors. They have huge experience in delivering grants on behalf of the government in a timely manner. They have great systems in place for processing and evaluating applications and for tracking and reporting on results. We're just finalizing the program details for this initiative now, and more information will be forthcoming in the very near future. I'll go to the next slide, please. As the minister mentioned, Budget 2020 announced that the government would be providing one-time funding of $25 million for Ontario's arts institutions to help them cover operating losses that they've incurred as a result of the pandemic. And the goal of this funding is to help these organizations remain solvent so they can prepare for a time when they can fully reopen their facilities, resume their programming, and welcome back audiences and visitors. The Ontario Arts Council will be the delivery agent for this initiative because they have 50+ years of history in dealing with Ontario's arts sector and huge expertise in this area. They have great systems in place for processing and evaluating funding applications, for tracking on and reporting of results. Like the first initiative I just mentioned, the program design for this initiative is being finalized as we speak, and we'll be in a position to have more details for all of you in the not too distant future. So thank you. I will turn it back to Derek now to take you to the next item on our agenda. Over to you, Derek.
Thank you very much, Kevin, Patricia. Appreciate you walking everyone through some of those finer details, both about the lockdown, but also our upcoming Community Building Fund and Core Art supports, which I know we look forward to bringing more details and opening up applications in the very near future. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Tim Sherman, who is an Assistant Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Finance, to walk us through the small business support grants. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone that there is a QA function below. You are welcome to use it and submit your questions. We'll try our best to get back to you based on the information that we have available within our ministry. However, if we don't have the answer, we may redirect your question by asking you to contact us through minister.mcleod@ontario.ca so that we can make sure to put you in touch with the correct representatives in either the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, or the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services if it's an application-based question. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Sherman for our presentation on the small business supports grants. Tim, over to you.
Thank you for that. So it's going to provide a kind of a high-level overview of the grant and hopefully be a helpful scene setter before folks take you through the detail of the portal. So turning to slide 2, government announced the move to a broader province-wide shutdown on December the 21st, and at the same time announced that it would be introducing a new Ontario Small Business Support Grant in recognition of the impact that the shutdown would have on Ontario small businesses. It's worth noting that this new grant is over and above other existing programs that the province has put in place, such as the property tax and energy rebates, or the support that's available to businesses through many federal programs. So the new grant will provide a minimum of $10,000 and up to $20,000 for eligible small businesses that are expected to experience a minimum of a 20% decline in revenue. So every small business will be able to use the support to navigate challenging times and whatever makes the most sense for them. I think all of you on this call will have a much better sense of some of the ways in which businesses will be able to use this support. And there are 3 basic eligibility requirements in the bottom of the slide, which are probably a helpful framework to use when thinking about eligibility for the program. So first, the business needs to be either closed or significantly restricted by the provincial shutdown. And we have a list of businesses or categories of businesses that meet that eligibility later on in the slide deck. And the portal, of course, in the application will make that clear. Second, this is targeted at small businesses. And so the definition that is being used for this program is common in other contexts. And it's having less than 100 employees. So basically between 0 and 99 employees at the enterprise level. And finally, the business needs to be able to demonstrate that it will experience a minimum of 20% revenue decline as a result of the shutdown. The primary way that this will be measured is by comparing April 2020 with April 2019 monthly revenue. but there are alternate measurements in place for businesses who were maybe established outside this window. And we also have a slide to show you what some of those comparative points will be. And of course, applications for the new program opened today. So the portal that folks will take you through is now available for applications. Next slide, please. So there's just a couple of examples on the slide, which we thought might be helpful to take folks through so you can kind of understand how those parameters that I just walked through sort of tangibly work their way through the program. So we have kind of two companies, Company A, Company B on the bottom of the slide there. And I think we just assume that both these companies meet the business eligibility test in terms of being shut down or significantly restricted. And if you look at Company A on the left, so you'll see that it says there it'll experience a monthly loss of $20,000, which is equivalent in their context to a 25% decline in revenue. So that means they meet the 20% revenue test, and they will be eligible for a $20,000 grant, which is also the maximum, but it fully offsets the revenue decline that's been presented by the company. And then on the right, there's a monthly loss of $15,000, which is also 20%. So they meet the 20% threshold for the decline, and that entire amount, $15,000, would be funded. So turning to slide 4 to talk a little bit about the revenue comparators. So as I mentioned before, businesses that perhaps were not in operation in April 2019 will still be able to calculate a revenue decline using various alternative revenue decline comparators. And the goal here is to make sure that all small businesses will be able to be eligible to apply for the grant. As you see, the chart on this slide shows the different comparators. So I think one thing you'll notice when you look at the comparators is what the program is trying to capture is 2 points in time, one where the business would have been kind of in normal operations versus when they would have been experiencing some kind of public health restriction. So for example, if you look at the second row in the chart, this is for a small business that went into operation after April 2019, and so as a result couldn't use that more general comparator. Sometime between May 2019 and January 2020, the revenue comparator that they would use is February 2020 and April 2020. When you think back, February was sort of a pre-pandemic, pre-lockdown, provincial lockdown month, whereas April, the province was in a lockdown scenario, and so as a result, it's meant to be a good representation of the impact that that business would have been experienced in the current provincial shutdown. And then just a note at the bottom of the slide, winter seasonal businesses will also be permitted to apply, and there's an alternative revenue decline comparator. They can choose between December 2019 and December 2020 or January 2020, December 2020, and that's just a recognition that winter seasonal businesses may have a different rhythm and cadence to their business, and so we're providing some flexibility for those businesses. All right, and then slide 5 provides the list of eligible small business types. So these are ones that are subject to closures or significant restrictions under the current shutdown. As we mentioned, this is sort of the first test that businesses need to meet as part of the application process. And if they meet this plus the revenue test, they will be able to receive a minimum of $10,000 and up to $20,000. For the period of the provincial shutdown, I just wanted to note that this is also the list of businesses that will be eligible for the, excuse me, for the property tax and energy rebate. So I know we're focusing on this program, but it's just another reminder that there are other support programs in place for businesses. So if they don't meet some of the other tests, for example, around revenue for employees, there are these other rebates that we can also apply for, and it's all in the same portal, which makes it much easier for businesses to be able to enter that information. And then the footnote on the bottom there, just to be clear that there are businesses that are not eligible, and those include those that were already required to close prior to the introduction of the modified stage 2 measures in October. So that's kind of the starting point for determining business eligibility. And then of course, any essential businesses that are permitted to operate either within capacity restrictions or otherwise being essential are not eligible for the program. So this is the final slide, and hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of program parameters and eligibility. And I will turn it over to I guess folks will take you through the portal itself.
Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate you walking us through some of those finer details. For those of you who may have joined us previously for a similar presentation before the holidays, you'll recall that we talked about this grant when it was initially announced, and that certainly provided a lot more detail in terms of the eligibility and exactly how much funding is available and how it can be used, which is really at your discretion. So with that, I'm next going to turn the presentation over to Manish Agarwal, who's with the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, to walk you through the online application portal TPON, so that you know exactly how to apply to get these supports, including both the small business support, but also the Main Street program, PPE support, and energy rebates as well. So with that, Manish, I will turn it over to you.
Heard about this new program, and I come to Ontario.ca with a beautiful background. Here I click on English, and I see the link where it says support we are providing for small business. I want to know, as a small business, what kind of support I'm getting from the Government of Ontario. I click on this link, which takes me to a page with all details about the different programs that the Government of Ontario is having for in support of small businesses. I see here that there's a new program. I click on it, and it takes me to the page where it provides me the list of the programs that are currently available: Ontario Small Business Support Grant, Ontario Main Street Relief Grant, PPE support, property tax, energy cost rebates, and what you need to apply. So the program information, what the program is, what I will get as a small business, what are the eligibility criteria, and information about the other programs as well. So I decide to apply for the Ontario Small Business Support Grant because I meet the eligibility criteria. I'll click on apply for funding. Now, when I click for apply for funding, I'm going to show you the test page because I don't want to overwhelm the live system. So it brings me to a page like this. So what you have here is that get help button, which allows me to get help from the contact center or get access to the program information guide. If I want to apply in French, I can switch to French as well. If I've already applied for the other programs, I don't need to start a new application. I can resume the application, or if I've saved the application for draft because I didn't add all the information, I can continue with the same application. Or I can apply for funding. I can start with a new application. So given that I'm a new applicant, I'm going to click on apply for funding. And it brings me to this page where I need to check the eligibility, if I can apply for these programs or not. By default, the new program is selected. I can select multiple programs if I'm interested, or I can just apply for that program. Click on check eligibility, which will again take me to a series of questions to check my eligibility for the program. The first question for the Small Business Support Grant program is, was my business required to close temporarily or significantly restrict services as a result of being subject to province-wide shutdown? I will say yes. Does your business have less than 100 employees? That's the definition for a small business. You can say yes. And is my business expecting at least a 20% revenue decline? I have a handy reference to the business guide that I can access if I want to know more information about what revenue decline means. I'll say yes, and then I click on next. Now, it says that I'm eligible for the following funding program, the Ontario Small Business Grant. I'm going to start my application. Now, when I start my application, it takes me to a series of steps. It's going to ask me to provide my business information, my contact information, information related to the new Ontario Small Business Support Grant, then review all the information I provided in the 3 steps, provide my banking information, and submit. So I come here, I provide my legal name. So I'm running a small business, Olivia's Tea Room, so I provide information. I run it as Store of Happiness. And I provide my CRA business number. Now, at this stage, I can validate the business number if I'm not sure if my business number is correct or not. If it's correct, I don't need to validate it there. If I don't know where to get the business number, we provide a handy tip. It can be found on the GST, HST return, or the employer payroll, or T2 corporate tax filing. Now, if I'm a self-proprietor who doesn't have a business number, we also provide a handy link on how to obtain the business number from the CRA website. The next step is to provide the address information. I can use address lookup postal code, or if I know the address, I can directly key it in. Okay, so I have that. My billing address is same as head office address. If it's different, I can provide that as well. Click on next. Here I'm going to provide my contact information. Nash, last name is Akrawal, phone number, and my email address. Okay, so I've provided information, I've confirmed my email address is that. It's very important to provide the correct email address, validate it again, because that's the address that is being used in terms of sending emails, confirming the receipt of your application, confirming the payment process, and if you have to come back and resume your application. I'm going to confirm that I'm the owner and I have the signing authority for the individual, trust, or the business. At this point, I can save a draft, which allows me to come back. If I don't have all the information, I can come back and resume the application. All this information will be saved. I don't have to provide that information again. Click on next. Now here I'm going to provide information very specific to the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. Right up front, we provide the application guide, which the users can review, the applicants can review in case they have more questions or they want to find more about the program. I need to provide my business type, and it's restaurants and bars. Now it asks me if my question is part of an enterprise or an affiliated enterprise. We have a handy tip in terms of what it means, enterprise, or they can refer to the application guide for more information. So my business is not part of an enterprise, so I'm not going to check that. Now here, if I was having a winter seasonal business, like a ski resort or any business that is associated with winter seasonal, I can say yes, and it will ask me a series of questions. If my business was in operation in the current business structure in December 2019, if I say yes, it's going to ask me for my highest monthly revenue, either in December 2019 or January 2020, given that many winter seasonal businesses don't start operating until January. For the purposes of this demo, I'll say no, my business is not a winter seasonal business. Then the next question is, was my business in operation in the current business structure in April 2019? If I say yes, it will ask me to provide number of employees, my revenue in April 2019, my revenue in April 2020. If I say no, it prompts me to provide my business first full month of operation, the month, and based on that, it's going to ask me for the same information in terms of number of employees, what was my revenue, and in February 2020, what was my revenue in April 2020. For the purpose of the demo, again, I'll say yes, it was in business structure in operation in April 2019. The number of employees were 10. The revenue was 10,000 in April 2019. In April 2020, the revenue is 2,000. Then I attest that the information I'm providing is all good. I go through the terms and conditions. I agree. I've provided now information with respect to this program. I'll say next. Now here I can review all the information I've provided, the business information, the contact information, sorry, the information related to Ontario Small Business Support Grant. So all the information has been provided. It all looks good. I can go to the next step, which is to provide my banking information. There's a sample check, copy of sample check provided, just in case people want to see where their branch, what their branch number, institution number, and account number is located on the check. So I'll put that in here. And I'll select the institution number. Now there are many banks. We're just not limiting to the top 5. We cover a broad spectrum of banks within the province. And provide the account number. That's it. Then verify that all the information I provided is correct and click on submit. So when I click on submit, again, some terms and conditions. I'll be attesting as Manish Agarwal that all the information I'm providing is true. Agree and submit. So once I do that, my application is submitted, and so it's just a test environment. So it's saying that there's a problem because I've already used the CRA business number. So we have a check as well to ensure that the CRA business number is not used again. There's only one application that can be submitted with that application. But once I click on submit, my application will be submitted, and I'll get a notification saying that your submission, your application has been submitted. Let me quickly share the email with you on how it looks. The business will receive an email similar to this, where it says that you've applied for this program. There's the authorization number, and it's under review. And if it's approved, you will receive a subsequent confirmation email notifying that your payment has been processed. And that it takes around 2 weeks to receive your payment once the application has been approved.
Well, I think we may have lost Manish there, but I do know that was the end of his presentation. So thank you very much, Manish, for providing that. With that, I'm going to turn over to Minister MacLeod for some closing remarks. Minister.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Derek. We had close to 200 people participate today from Northern Ontario. I'm very grateful that you took the time to go through this demonstration. I did note that there are a number of questions, so my team will be actively working hard to get responses to you in a timely fashion, recognizing some of the questions that you have are not within our purview as a ministry, but with one of our sister ministries. So again, please feel free at any time to email minister.macleod@ontario.ca. I just also wanted to say that we will be doing a province-wide webinar on the restrictions and the potential for reopening many of our sectors this coming Monday at 2 p.m. and you'll be invited to that, and I do hope you'll be able to participate. And I look forward to hopefully in the very near future getting back up to Northern Ontario. So thank you everyone for taking the time today. Again, minister.macleod@ontario.ca. And again, we'll have an opportunity on Monday to talk about what the province-wide shutdown and stay-at-home order looks like, and if and when it will be alleviated and lifted. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend.